everybody. Welcome back to another SJG Perspective. It is me, SJG Perspectiving. So today I want to talk about the South Dakota Bill, SB 49. That bill is talking about the transgendered regulation bill, or I guess what would they exactly call this? South Dakota to consider bill banning transgender student from competing against opposite biological sex. And they are just getting seriously flogged for being such bigoted assholes for this. There is an example of this happening in Texas with a kid named Mac Beggs, who was a female, had the XX chromosome, and is transgendering or has transgendered. I don't know if they had the plumbing rearranged yet, but they were transgendering to become a male. So he, for sake of argument, he wanted to wrestle boys. But again, in Texas law says if you have an XX, you have to wrestle against XX. If you have an XY, you have to wrestle against XY. And he was really upset about that, but, not too upset, because he ended up getting 2 back-to-back state championships. Won them in the wrestling. Whooped every girl's ass. 52-0, I believe, is what his record was. Well, here's the thing. There was a big disadvantage to all those other girls. A big disadvantage. And I don't know where the whole feminism fits into this, but we'll come back to that. Just put feminism off to your mind, back of your mind here, and we'll come back to that. Here's where he had a huge benefit. As has been discussed, he was transgendering from a female to a male. So to transgender, you got to do hormone replacements. Hormone replacements are testosterone. Testosterones are steroids. They are performance-enhancing drugs. So you have a girl who is transgendering to a boy, and to make that leap over into the Sausageville, you actually have to take testosterone. And testosterone, as we've just mentioned a second ago, is a steroid. If you follow any sports at all, from, probably the most notorious was old, what was the bike rider dude? I just was saying his name before. Lance Armstrong. He was busted and lost a bunch of his awards for his Tour de France because he was doping. He was taking performance-enhancing drugs. He was taking steroids. You have the whole controversy that surrounds John Jones, and he didn't fight. He fought once or twice in 2 years because of all the drug scandals surrounding him, with the idea that he possibly was taking performance-enhancing drugs. You've had Chael Sonnen. You've had Mauricio Werdum. I'm talking about UFC guys right now. You've had a whole bunch of these athletes, and then, you can go all the way up into like professional baseball, professional football, track, I don't know, maybe. And then you think about the Russians, the big deal with the Russians winning all those gold medals and getting them stripped because they were doping. Taking drugs, a steroid, to give you a benefit to win is against the rules. So, of course, this girl/boy, Mac, of course he's going to win against 52-0 against the women because he has a huge advantage. He's taking steroids. Now, here's where the advantage stops, is that when you have a boy that wants to go down and be a girl. There's a MMA fighter in some organization, Fallon, I forget their first name, but Fallon's her last name. And he is a man that now has transitioned to a woman, and he wants to come into I think he wants to come in the UFC. I could be getting the story all messed up. But and Dana's like, no, we're not going to do that. And it makes pretty damn good sense, because any time, or 9 times out of 10, when a male of equal stature goes up against a woman, and I'm talking about equal stature in the sense of athletic prowess. So like 2 high school kids on varsity teams. One's on the girls' varsity, one's on the boys' varsity, right? If they played one-on-one, who do you think is going to win 9 times out of 10? Just being real here, not trying to be politically correct or trying to be, show how virtue, signal any of your virtues. If you had a gun to your head and you had to choose who you thought was going to win even 8 times out of 10, who would you pick? Who would you pick? Would you pick the girl? No, you wouldn't. I'll give you another example. Amanda Nunes just beat Chris Cyborg, which Chris Cyborg could beat the shit out of a lot of dudes. That is absolutely undisputed, right? But that's a whole different question. You got to wonder. You look at Chris Cyborg, you're like, whoa, is she a dude? But you take Amanda Nunes, who just beat Chris Cyborg for the 145-pound championship, right? If you were to match her up against the number one champion, Max Holloway, in the 145-pound division in the UFC, it wouldn't even be a competition. Max would murk her in the first round, probably in the first minute of the first round, probably in the first 30 seconds of the first round, quite honestly. But it wouldn't be a competition. She would end him. Now, could she beat other MMA professional fighters? Sure. Ones that are way down on that aren't even ranked. Then she could be competitive probably with some of those. But when you're talking like for like, it's not even a question. Football, why don't we do that? How about a linebacker? Why don't if you took a linebacker, a professional or high school for that matter, and you put the number one, they don't really have girls football, so that's kind of hard to compare. Track, you took the number one track 400 meter, or let's say let's go 400. He'd still beat it. They'd probably still beat the 400, but javelin. You take the top woman javelin thrower and against the top javelin thrower and, male javelin, who's going to throw the javelin farther? 9 times out of 10. You have a gun to your head. You have to decide. Pick the right one or you're dead. Who do you really bet on? Putting your virtue signaling, putting your, all this other political correctness crap aside. So I think that the law is a good law. I don't think it's a discriminatory law. It's a common sense, paying attention to science law, people. Can we please just stop this craziness a little bit? I am not transphobic or homophobic. This is not against trans people. If you want to be trans, be trans. Be a good person, and I'll be, I have no problem being friends with you. Not that you want to be friends with me, but I'm just saying, this isn't coming out of a thing that I hate trans people. This is coming out of a common sense mindset that there is differences between the sexes, and that's okay. We're not all the same. We are different. We're equal. We're of the same value, but we have different characteristics. Biologically, it's science. Why do we deny it, and why do we fight this so much? It's crazy nonsense. Now, back to the feminism thing I touched on earlier. Where are the feminists on this? Granted, I have not gotten my updated copy of Intersectionalities for 2019 and where stuff ranks. So maybe that's the whole reason. Because maybe transgenderism outranks feminism, so a feminist can't be offended at a transgender person because they actually rank higher on the pyramid of victimhood and of power, so to speak. So maybe that's why. I don't know. But it would seem like the feminists would say, whoa, hang on a second here, time out. We don't like males. It's pretty apparent. We think that they're terrible. Just watch the last Gillette commercial. All men are pieces of crap and should become good humans, right? Because there's no good men out in the world, right? We're all just toxic males, toxic masculinity. And, the Gillette just put their, stepped on their whole ding dongs on that one, but and that's pretty evident too. But I realize we're all pieces of crap, but that's what feminism thinks about men. So how do you feel about this, Mr. and Mrs. Feminist? How is this okay for a man for a man to transgender to a woman and come down and just wreak havoc in the women's division, right? I don't understand that. So at any rate, that was just some thoughts I had on this whole matter, which probably are going to piss a lot of people off, and I apologize about that. Not really. If you're mad about it, I'm sorry. That's okay. You can be mad. But don't forget to subscribe and hit a like. And until next time, SJG Perspective. Thanks. Bye.